The goal of the Israelis is to push the Palestinians out of the Gaza and the West Bank into Egypt and Jordan. If the regime in Egypt implodes, 100% in the best interest of Israel. Because with that, you can create the greater Israel. There's two objectives for the Israelis. They haven't been able to achieve either.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to i3 Pulse. Today, will Netanyahu's shocking statements on Greater Israel set the region on fire? And what's next for Gaza as the Israeli government is toying with a ground invasion? And finally, will Saudi and Egypt push back against Israel or continue to deepen their ties? Today on i3 Pulse. And please don't forget to subscribe. Most of you guys that are watching are not subscribers. So take the moment, subscribe to the channel. We promise to continue to give you quality content. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. How's it going?
Good.
So, Sheikh, in a recent interview with I-24 TV News, Netanyahu made a big statement where he affirmed his connection to the Greater Israel vision. And before we spoke about actually his plans for Greater Israel, there were some comments saying that this is not possible and all this stuff. Why is he speaking about Greater Israel at a time like this?
Well, Bismillah, it's really at the beginning is understanding that the Israeli public, this is their dream, this is their vision. He's trying to mobilize people within the country for whatever policies he's trying to enact, whatever basically politics he's trying to play. So that's really it. I mean, there's nothing, except that. Because otherwise, it's just, for the Arab world, for example, that's just very threatening statements, right? Like, I mean, imagine somebody's telling you, I want to take your country away, I want to kick you out, I'm going to take Egypt, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, even Iraq and Syria and Lebanon. Like that's pretty vicious. Imagine basically, I can't even basically make an example of Trump because Trump already said he's going to take over Canada and Greenland. But it's very nasty. And that nobody should be okay with such statements of taking people's homelands away, right? But
so this is kind of like rallying up the base for whatever he has planned.
Yes, definitely. This is for internal public consumption.
There's lots of reports now. So moving on from Netanyahu's statements to different, reports, right, about what's being said and specific satellite images, right? So there's satellite images that have been released, and these reports are showing that the IDF is building up their presence to prepare for the next phase of the war, potentially a ground invasion of Gaza. Now, we've seen all the deaths, we've seen the starvation and famine. Why is Netanyahu and the Israeli government pushing for a ground invasion now?
I mean, Netanyahu wants to perpetuate the war. And what everybody needs to understand is that the Netanyahu or the whole Israeli government, their problem is not Hamas only. That's not the problem. Actually, it's not even Hamas. The problem of the Israelis and the Israeli government is the Palestinians. Okay, Hamas is just a movement. It's a militant movement. They can basically destroy, fight, whatever. But even if that's why it's not in the best interest of Israel is to eliminate Hamas. If they eliminate Hamas, then they have no reason to invade Gaza. And that's why the Israelis, in some cases, they might even prolong the life of Hamas so they can continue to have an excuse. And if they do eliminate Hamas, they'll recreate another Hamas to keep an excuse to keep, meddling with the Palestinian areas, let's say, populated areas, because there's no sovereignty over these areas to the Palestinians. Because the goal is ethnic cleansing, right? I mean, they say it out loud. They say it publicly. It's not like, there's no analysis here. The goal of the Israelis is to push the Palestinians out of the Gaza and the West Bank into Egypt and Jordan. Once they do that, they push the Egyptians out of Egypt and the Jordanians out of Jordan and the Lebanese out of Lebanon and the Syrians out of Syria and the Iraqis, as we just said, because to build the greater Israel, you need to push all these people out of their homes, right? And conquer people, colonialize people.
So, Sheikh, just about almost a week ago, we saw that Israel killed off pretty much all the journalists from Al Jazeera, right? Anas Sharif, and we know that Israel's killed hundreds of journalists as well. I'm just...
The world is going into lawlessness.
Yeah.
And this is what even basically the Western populace don't understand, that the world have allowed such savagery on planet Earth.
Now, Sheikh, on the military ground invasion, do you see that now? What's the likelihood? Do you see it as something that's going to happen? High likelihood? What's the balance of probabilities in your mind for a ground invasion? Like, and he wants to prolong the war, but what military objectives will they even achieve from a military standpoint?
Well, they're trying to basically occupy a specific area in Gaza. Remember, Trump basically did not allow them to stay, pushed them out. Now, maybe there's new negotiations that happened between them, and they're pulling. Let's see. At the end of the day, they threatened many times for invasion. Like invading Gaza, even though it's small, it's still very costly, and it's not easy to conduct. It's very risky still. They can do it, but it's not a free ride. It's not free.
Now, in terms of objectives, right? The Times of Israel reports, right, that Netanyahu's office released a plan, 5 objectives. 1, disarm Hamas. 2, secure the return of all hostages. Demilitarize the Strip. Take security control over the territory. And then establish an alternative civil administration that's neither Hamas nor the Palestinian Authority. So who is that? Like, what would that alternative even be?
Well, the alternative can easily be created. That's not the biggest issue, right? Because at the end of the day, the one who has authority is the one who has the weapons.
Yes.
Right? But that's not the issue. The issue is basically invading Gaza does not achieve the real goal. These 5 things are not the real goals. The real goal is ethnic cleansing. It's basically creating a situation in Gaza where people would want to either migrate or fully basically let go of the concept of resistance, whether it's militant or peaceful, it doesn't really matter for them, right? But they don't want the Palestinian people to resist colonialism, right? So at the end of the day, the United Nations, within their Charter of Rights, secures the right of colonialized people to resist.
Yeah.
Okay? So the Israelis do not want that. So what they're trying to do is to break the spirit of the Palestinians. That didn't happen yet. So there's 2 objectives for the Israelis: to break the spirit of the Palestinians, the resistance spirit of the Palestinians, irrespective of Hamas. And the second thing is to ethnically cleanse these areas. They haven't been able to achieve either. You see what I'm saying? And that's why when the American administration, they were in disagreement with Netanyahu, they tell, okay, what's next? You invade, okay, and then what? Because invading, you're not breaking the spirit of resistance, and you're not, and we're not allowing you to push them into Egypt. Because that's why the Egyptians have their borders closed, right? And definitely, that's a treachery to the Palestinians from the Egyptian people.
We've seen a lot of countries now, different nations, Western nations now, right, joining this bandwagon of recognition, right? We have Australia, right, France. Anthony Albanese, the Prime Minister of Australia, announced his decision to recognize Palestine after consulting with Macron, Keir Starmer, but also Netanyahu and Mahmoud Abbas. And then New Zealand will also be considering recognition within the next month. Why is this happening now? And then where do you can this recognition have any impact in this situation?
Look, this could be a symbolic gesture within the European world to confront Trump. But it's not really, it's just symbolic. You understand? Because recognizing the Palestinian statehood, meaning what? Is this in the benefit of the Palestinians? No. What are they recognizing? They're recognizing little canteens or little portions of lands that are separated by walls and separated by roads and separated by military checkpoints. A disarmed state with that has basically the Israelis have oversight for its entries and exits and the borders and the land and the seas and the air. That's not a state. That's not a state. So the second goal of these announcements is to appeal to their public, right? Because the European public are anti-Israeli now, right? Even the Americans have become anti-Israeli.
Yeah.
Anti-Zionist, anti-Israeli. That we're speaking about the majority population, the white population in these countries.
Yeah.
So for them to appeal to them, this is the second thing. So that's why and the third thing is basically to confuse the Muslim mind, showing them that they care and to keep the Muslims, in a delusion that the Western world are. They care about human rights. They don't. We haven't seen it. We see genocide and people are fine with it.
Yeah, subhanAllah, this whole genocide has kind of exposed this rules-based kind of order.
Or non-rules based.
Yeah, yeah. And I know you mentioned that there's kind of this thing where the Europeans are kind of doing this as a symbolic move against the U.S. But is there any way that as more countries join on this, that this could put any pressure on the U.S. in any extent to kind of slow down the Israeli project?
No.
And Canada is one of those countries that said it's ready to recognize Palestine. And U.S. President Donald Trump actually replied and said it will be very hard to strike a trade deal with Canada after this. So do you anticipate the U.S. to fire back at the European nations and Canada? And how could Trump hurt them?
Well, look, the Trump already have sealed the economic deal with the Europeans, so that's done. The way they would hurt them through tariffs and so forth. But with Canada, since the negotiation is still there, I guess he used it against the Canadians.
Now, we spoke about Europe, and Canada, but talking about the Middle East, right? Saudi Arabia's condition for normalizing with Israel has always been Palestinian statehood, Palestinian statehood, Palestinian statehood. Could this recognition be kind of serving the need of like, okay, we give them some little recognition, they don't have control over their skies or anything, but now this gives Saudi Arabia the permission now, or in a sense, the gives them kind of that approval where they can have that statement that, well, we did something and now we're normalizing.
What would happen with that U.S. agreement? That's number one. Number two, yes, the Gulf countries just want any fake, something to present to their own populace. And their stance is also for public consumption because their people, the majority of the Muslimin, the majority of the Arabs and the Muslimin are definitely basically, they would have a big problem basically with normalization, especially for Saudi Arabia, with the Israelis. But if there is some semblance of solution, some illusion of solution, they can present that as, look, we took care of the Palestinians and now we just need to move on.
The Cradle and some media outlets have reported, and it's an allegation, right, because Saudi Arabia kind of refused it, where the Italian dock workers, there was a Saudi ship, and Italian dock workers said, we're not loading the ship, we're not going to basically do anything with this ship and let it continue. Reason being is it has weapons, and that is also going to Israel. And then the company basically said, no, we have nothing to do with this. Now, why is Saudi advocating so strongly for this state, and then at the same time it's providing that land corridor, it's sending weapons, all this stuff that we've seen documented of their support for the Israeli nation.
The support of the Saudis to Israelis is documented, like having basically weapon shipments. The Saudis, they don't make weapons. So I'm not sure. Maybe this is like a Mossad psyop or, operation. I'm not sure basically if this is really true information. Like the Israelis have enough weapons, and if they don't have enough, they get it from the United States. So, why would they put it in a Saudi ship? This seems to be more of a drama and a frame-up than anything else.
And what would that framing them in that sense achieve in that situation? Like, what's objective?
It's putting the Saudis in a very bad image, right? Like, it's just they're helping us. So it seems the one who has interest to do that is the Israelis. Is to keep exposing them more and more, and then just and maybe it's also for neutralizing the emotions. The more you do it, or maybe even the Saudis did it to just basically keep pushing the
envelope.
The envelope, right? So
there are many videos that are circulating right now across the Egyptian embassies globally, and these videos are showing the gates of activists going and then locking up the Egyptian embassy gates, calling them Zionist, and getting to arguments with the staff of these embassies, happening across multiple countries. Do you see, Sheikh, that potential of additional pressure on Egypt as things go on? Because before we predicted, you've mentioned that, look, Egypt could reach a point where it's a boiling point. With more pressure and the starvation and the famines, could it reach a point where the Egyptian government has no choice but to intervene, or someone does a coup? Where do you see that going?
Yeah, no, I don't think they'll intervene, definitely. But maybe if they're smart enough and they try to intervene, I don't think they'll intervene, to be honest. Not even fake it. But I believe basically there would be a coup in Egypt. I think the Egyptian society is boiling. The Egyptian armed forces are unstable. I think there's loss of great sentiment, Islamic sentiment, and for the Palestinians by the majority of Egyptians. And I think the regime in Egypt is at risk. Like if we're gonna assess it from a geopolitical perspective, any analyst, not just me, would tell you that the Egyptian regime is literally at high risk of implosion and a coup that could basically jeopardize the whole region. And the more days that pass by, the more people are going to get upset. And, the more likely it becomes that this regime would fall.
Now, Israel, when they, so I'm trying to understand, Sheikh, the interests of Israel in the situation, right? Because when going back to when Netanyahu said this whole greater Israel statement, the Saudi Foreign Ministry condemned that statement. They felt that it's literally talking about taking their country, part of their country, and then now you have this situation where Egypt keeps the blockade going, and the food is not going in, people are not able to leave. Would this benefit Israel in the long run, actually? Because if Egypt hits a boiling point and now becomes unstable, could it be a threat for Israel? Could it be an opportunity for Israel to now invade part of the Sinai to secure their interests? What do you think?
Yeah, I think if the regime in Egypt implodes and it goes into, let's say, Egypt, if it breaks into, let's say, 2 or 3 countries, 100% this is in the best interest of Israel. Definitely. Yeah, without doubt. Because with that you can create the greater Israel, right? And how could you create it? Because Egypt is too big for Israel to invade at once. But if it breaks, then Israel could basically go invade the Sinai, which is what they want for the greater Israel until the Nile River.
Sheikh, and you mentioned before, right, that Egypt is going to be the next country that will be going through
The Israelis are saying that.
And the other thing is Israel, I mean, it's recent memory, right? It's 1967, right? They took basically Egypt, part of Egypt already.
Yeah.
There is a video, that old video of Piers Morgan and Netanyahu. It's like decades ago. And then Netanyahu's in his famous room with the famous map, they call it, right? And then he's showing all the Arab countries. Oh, look at the Arab countries, so big. Israel is just a little finger on the map. And he says, and these guys have dreams. They have big dreams. They have dreams of a caliphate. Like he's just speaking about the dreams of the surrounding nations. And we can see that, the country leadership doesn't really have that because we're in a tough situation. But it seems that Netanyahu has a plan, right? They have a very strategic plan on what they want to do to get this greater Israel. I guess what would be, to draw this podcast to a close, certain words of advice that you can give for Muslims so that we can have a strategic plan so that the Muslim world is not continue to be occupied and occupation doesn't continue to spread?
Well, how is the Muslim world occupied? The Ummah needs to understand. The Muslims need to understand how is the Muslim world occupied. It's occupied through its political leadership. The current political leadership in many Muslim countries are individuals who their task is to serve the colonialist Western agenda, and in return they stay in power. They get the support from the embassies to keep them in power, and that's all what they care about. They care about basically them staying in power and to serve the colonial agenda. Their goal is not to build the country, not to develop, not to erase, let's say, poverty or to create literacy or better health systems or better, scientific advancements in the country. That's not what the goal is. So when the Ummah understands that, hopefully basically it starts, pushing these people away from its own leadership. Without that type of thinking, we're going to continue to be subservient to colonial puppets that ruin our countries and just keep us in this, abyss really of backwardness.
And there's no choice but to have a strategic plan to build our nations, right? Because every step of the way, it's one country after another. Anyways, there's the lineup of countries on the chopping block, and they're already saying it, right?
Oh, definitely.
Which is even more of reason for us to start thinking about what we can do as Muslims and spreading the right ideas. So, Sheikh, Jazakallah khairan. It's always a pleasure to sit with you and discuss these topics. And just wanted to make sure, or guys, make sure you like, you comment, you share, you subscribe. Already asked you to subscribe, so make sure you do. And inshallah, stay tuned for the next episode of I3 Pulse. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum.